Overcoming vaccine hesitancy. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the conversation. I'm David Shuster. As the Delta variant of COVID-19 continues to spread across the United States, few places have been hit quite as hard as Alabama. They are now averaging about 100 deaths a day, and the data just came out that found that last year, more people died from COVID-19 in Alabama than were born. Here to talk about this and the challenges that continue, Mayor Stephen Reed. Mayor Reed is the mayor of Montgomery, Alabama. And Mayor, thanks for joining us. There's something like a 41% vaccine hesitancy rate in Alabama. How come?
Thanks for having me. You know, we have this low rate in part because of the misinformation that has been put out there for so long that we're having a hard time trying to clarify that for many people in the public. And I think it became dangerous when this issue got so politicized that we weren't able to focus on the health of the community as opposed to what side of the debate you were on. And that has led to our low vaccination rate, and unfortunately has led to a higher per capita infection rate. And that's presented a problem for us.
You've been in office for 2 years, so you've been right in the thick of things. Given that sort of hesitancy and the confusion, what are some of the strategies that you've seen that have worked in trying to get people to sort of overcome whatever worries they may have?
Well, what we tried to do is enlist the medical experts and those that truly know and are trusted by the community in giving out, disseminating information. So we assembled a COVID-19 task force to help us get the information out, and also to try to improve people's understanding of what went into the vaccination process to get it to market so fast and why they need to take it. But we've also treated it like a campaign. We have gotten partnerships through various organizations to help us with boots on the ground to go door to door. We work with faith leaders, we work with grassroots leaders to really try to get the information right where people are. And then we've tried to do everything that we could to make it very easy for people to get vaccinated by taking these clinics to football games, outside churches and places where people are gathered, to make sure that if they want to get vaccinated, they can. Not everyone has access to a doctor, and believe it or not, even pharmacies can be intimidating to some people who just aren't familiar with this process. So we tried to take all of the barriers out, and we found some success in that. And oh, by the way, it hadn't hurt that we've also used some incentives, whether it be gift cards, as well as other monetary incentives to try to get many in our community vaccinated.
Yeah, and some of those incentives seem pretty crucial, because I think there was just a poll that came out that found a huge number of the people who are unvaccinated don't realize that the vaccine is free. They think it costs something. And so for people who are dealing with some financial difficulty, that could be an impediment. How do you chalk up the misinformation? Is it because of conservative news, because of the far right media that's out there, because of the politics? What's to blame?
Oh, I don't think there's any question about that. I think it started with the right-wing political media machine really pushing that narrative, and those that are online pushing it as well through various social media outlets. And then unfortunately, seeing right-wing elected officials take that as a badge of honor. And unfortunately, as they promote it, even as some of them got vaccinated, ironically enough, that sunk into the community's mindset, and it has been hard to change that ever since. And then it became an issue of liberty, and how we got there, I don't know. But again, a lot of that was intentional, it was deliberate, and that's unfortunate because it's cost not only people their lives, but it has cost our healthcare system, a lot of money, millions upon millions of dollars that we have still not gotten over yet. So we're still gonna work at it, and we're still trying to work with those who are objective, but unfortunately, it has just become a line in the sand for so many because of the politicized nature of this issue.
I know that one of the big issues that Alabama is facing is involving a federal lawsuit, Department of Justice investigation over prison conditions. And as a result, the Republican governor, Kay Ivey, she's trying to divert something like $400 million towards building new prisons that would otherwise go towards helping the state with COVID-19. What do you make of that? Is that a wise move?
Well, I think that's a move as it relates to prisons that we should be looking at. How do we sustain this long term? The COVID dollars were really put in place for us to try to assist small businesses, for us to try to assist our public health community, as well as education, and those people that are struggling to make it day to day, whether it be through rental assistance or even other small loan opportunities for entrepreneurs. So it is discouraging to see that a lot of that money may be used for to build prisons. I would really prefer a lot of that money be used for those prisons once they get out, and how we train them and how we reskill them with workforce development programs and reentry programs. That to me would be a much better investment as opposed to using them to build prisons. What we need to build prisons is the fact that we need to increase our revenue in our state coffers, and then we aren't caught waiting on a windfall to comply with the federal guidelines. Because my question for state leaders would be this: suppose we didn't get this windfall, what would we have done? Whatever that answer is, that should have been the answer for rebuilding prisons and modernizing those prisons with mental health facilities and other healthcare in there, not using COVID dollars for those purposes.
Mayor Reed, one of the things that you've been very involved in your 2 years in office is in terms of voter participation and trying to help people understand the new voter ID laws. There are new ID laws across the country. I understand also in Alabama. What is the key message to people when they hear about, okay, there are voter ID restrictions, new laws? What's the message that you try to take to them in order to get them to be able to get past this and participate?
That they once asked people how many jelly beans were in a jar, how many bubbles of soap were there. They once asked people to recite the Constitution in various ways. There have always been obstacles when it came to the right to vote. And what I share with people in this community is that this is just the next layer of people who are trying to disenfranchise their opportunity to participate in this democracy, and they can't let that turn them around. And so what we try to do is to turn that negative into a positive and try to share with them lessons from the past, what was done and sacrifices that were made, and to make sure they understand that the right to vote is precious, it is sacred, and it is, as John Lewis said, the late John Lewis said so many times, it is something that we must protect. And it's up to many in our community around this country to do everything that we have to do. And let me call on Senate Democrats not to be married to a rule, or not to be married even really to a custom or something that has been a practice. That is not necessarily a procedure as it relates to the filibuster. There's no question in my mind that Democrats should do a carve out or abolish the filibuster to protect voting rights in this country. They owe it to themselves, and they owe it most importantly to the American people to protect the right to vote. We should not be having this discussion in 2021, and it shows the sheer level of evil that comes out when people will do whatever they can in order to tilt the election in their favor. That's problematic, and it's un-American.
And it's so timely too, because there are different proposals for how to deal with the voting rights, and there's some proposals that would get rid of what John Lewis proposed and sort of scale it back to what Senator Manchin wants. But you're saying, well, regardless, whatever you sort of coalesce around, don't let the Republicans filibuster it, make a carve out for this particular legislation in order to get something passed.
I don't think there's any question about that. Let me say this again, speaking where the Selma and Montgomery voting rights march ended. Speaking in this city as the mayor and former chief election official, there's too much that goes into this process. There's too much at stake for us to hope and wish and pray. We have to do more. We have to act, we have to speak, and we have to do and fight for this right to vote. History has shown us when that has not been done, it's been left up to those who are intentionally trying to disenfranchise a certain group of people, they will do just that. So we should not wait for that, and we should not be held hostage by any so-called practice that is customary when it comes to something that's sacred to our democracy as the right to vote. We see what's been done around various states. We see what's been proposed in other states, and it's up to those at the national level to make sure they don't just come to Selma and they don't just come to Montgomery to reenact the civil rights movement, that they participate and they fight for the movement that we're in right now.
Mayor Reed, as I said, you've been in office for 2 years. What has surprised you, both good and shall we say bad, about being mayor of Montgomery, Alabama?
Well, I think the surprises have been positive. There's so many people who want us to move forward. There's so many people who are future projecting our next steps and what we can do and the potential that we have. And there's so many people that not only are praying for us, but so many people who are willing to work and volunteer their time to help make this a better city and to help make this a better community. On the downside, certainly COVID has been probably the biggest surprise, how long that has lingered and the impact it has had. And I certainly, am thoughtful and prayerful for those who have lost family members and those that have lost their jobs and things along those lines. But we stay optimistic throughout this, and I do believe that there'll be a brighter day very soon.
Yeah, I can imagine when you took office in November 2019, the idea that you would have to be having to deal with something like a pandemic probably didn't even cross your mind. What an incredible responsibility you've had the last 2 years.
Well, we have, and that with other mayors around the country, we've all been trying to take some of the best practices from one another and trying to help our communities as best that we can. And we've had a lot of partners in the private sector. We've had a lot of partners in the nonprofit sector. So it's been a team approach. And I guess what it shows is that, the metal in your community comes out when there are times of challenge like this. And certainly Montgomery has responded, and so has our overall community. So that's what keeps me going. And I think that's what makes me proud that I'm in this seat, I'm in this position to help out, but most importantly, to lead us to a brighter future and to increase and improve opportunities for everyone that lives, works, and plays here.
Mayor Stephen Reed is the mayor of Montgomery, Alabama. And Mayor, thanks so much for doing this. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
You got it.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.